Welcome to the fish tank.
Hey everybody, Fishman here. This video is a little out of sequence for what I was planning. The next video was supposed to be about the build for that large aluminum system I had built the belt sander for. But I got a request from Jim Hanley, and he was going to put together a fish room, and he wanted to know what type of filtration systems to use and what kind of drilling to do and stuff along those lines. So I thought I'd put together this quick video and help him out. So Jim, this is for you. This is the kind of filter I think would work best for the situation you're thinking of. It's well, they call it trickle filters, but I just think of it more as a reservoir with a tray system. There's 3 trays in this, and one on the bottom which helps just disperse the water. It's empty and it has an open slot on one side. I'm going to probably go through how to build one of these in future videos, but as you can see, it's fairly straightforward. It's just a square acrylic reservoirs basically with rims on the bottom, and I use egg crate, and then I just cut the egg crate on a saw, and then that allows you to put in any number of trays. This one here is for soft water fish, so I use lava rock, and if you're going to use hard water, you just need to use coral or something along those lines. And I just put the U-tube here just so it doesn't have too much pressure pointing down in one direction, so it just disperses things out a bit. And then the nice thing I like with this style of system is to do water changes. All I need to do is I have a hose here. I just clamp it to the side of the reservoir, and then if you notice on the left-hand side, there's a pipe drilled under the side of the filter right there. All I do is sometimes what I'll do is I'll unplug one of the pumps, and that will allow me to drain one of the tanks down a bit, and then I just fill it all back up using this, and it's just a matter of timing. You get used to it and how much water to add. And if you want, you can use like RO water or whatever and use that to fill the system up. And this is the other one in my shop. It's the same as the first one, except this one's just a dual tray system, and I'm going to do a water change on this and clean the filter just to show you how it all works. So all I've done here is I've turned off the both pumps that run it, and there's 2 levels. And what I'm going to do is here, you can see it's going to start overflowing there, and as the tanks drain down, the water will go less, and then I'll just pull out the dirty filter floss, put in some fresh filter floss, and then what I do then is just use that hose you saw, climb it to the side, flush out the reservoir which is below there, and then just turn the pumps back on. So in a matter of took about 4 or 5 minutes altogether, I did water changes on 16 aquariums and cleaned all their filters. And that's the nice thing I like about this style. After you've taken care of fish long enough, you just don't want to spend too much time just doing general Mickey Mouse maintenance like water changes and that sort of thing. It's just very fast. And that just goes over to my floor drain, and so it's very little, if any, way of effort. But the other thing you need to think about for when you're trying to build a system where you're going to breed fish and that sort of thing is also the reservoirs allow you to put all your heaters in one, like down here, and if you want to run a UV sterilizer or any sort of that sort of stuff for carbon filtration, you can either use the trays or you can build a separate container, and you can run all kinds of stuff out of these. And that's the reason why they're probably the most versatile filter for multiple tank systems, and that's usually what I like using them for. At this point in the video, as you can see, the water is quite high in here. What I'm doing is I'm flushing out the reservoir down below with fresh tap water, and what I'm going to do now is plug the pumps back on, and you'll see them that water go down as the tanks fill back up. Now if you're just going to run one tank, it doesn't really matter what style of filtration you're going to use. You can use pretty much any commercially available filter, and they're all going to do just fine. I find canister filters with the inputs, when you put the input below the water level so that you don't disturb the surface too much, are better for growing plants because you end up with a bit of a higher carbon dioxide level in the water. Other than that, if it's a marine system, I really do recommend either a really good canister filter or a really good reservoir system, because there are lots of other things that a lot of people want to run into it, like biopellets and skimmers and all that sort of stuff, and that just gives you the room. But this style of filter really takes up a lot of space, so it is not really ideal for every situation. And if you have a cabinet, you end up with a fair amount of moisture in there, so canister filters are better for that. But in, like I said, multi-tank systems, I haven't yet found anything that's better than the good old trickle filter, or, well, reservoir filter. And for you, Jim, I think this would probably be your best bet. And in a few moments here, what we're going to do is, as these, you can see the water level starting to, pressure's coming up, and the water level in the reservoir is going down. That's turn the pumps back on. And momentarily, what we're going to do is we're going to switch over to one of the tanks, and I'm going to show you how the water distribution works. For tank drilling on multiple tank systems, I've almost always preferred side drilling the tanks instead of bottom drilling. I've seen it both ways, and I've actually done it both ways. The only reason why I like the side ones is I find maintenance is a little easier. You don't actually have to disturb anything that's in the tank when you're doing maintenance, if you're going to like move plants around and that sort of thing. Other than that, there's a little bit less pressure, I suppose, with a side drill, so you can go with slightly thinner glass. Other than that, bottom drilling is just as good. I mean, a little trickier, I suppose, when you're trying to do the plumbing, but other than that, there's not really much of a difference. More personal taste than anything else, I suspect. I used to use a lot of spray bars and whatnot when I have for the water returns. I've kind of gotten away from doing it, mostly because, well, laziness, I suppose, but I've never really found there to be much of a benefit. I haven't really noticed any difference, and like I said, this system's been running for 15 years, and I haven't really found any changes from the older style, the one that was here before. And the only reason why I switched over is because I started building these. I built them out of steel, and even if you're using stainless, it does tend to rust after a while, and so I switched all over to aluminum, and that's been much better. Alright, this is the return system. It's just a 1/2-inch PVC with the T's, and what I do is put on a little return pipe, and then I put an end cap on it, and I drill a side drill it, so it gives me a nice flow, and you can change how much flow you get by varying the size of the hole, and every now and then you just tap them out, because I find snails tend to get in there. And then the overflow is on the side, like I said, and it is just again, another piece of PVC that I've drilled a bunch of holes in. And I've noticed that a few people tend to get shy of overflows because, you know, water on the floor and that sort of thing. And I found the easiest way of getting around that is to use an elbow on the pipe. You'll see that in a few seconds. Right now I'm going to show you an end cap. And also the nice thing about the input, if you decide you want to isolate a specific tank, all you need to do is put on an end cap there with no hole drilled in it. And then if you remember from the first few seconds of video there, I had a sponge filter sitting in the reservoir. I tend to keep a couple in there, and that way they are always fully ready to go. And I'll just use an air pump and isolate a tank, and it's perfect that way. There you go, that's with an end cap on it. I don't always use those. Sometimes I just use a piece of filter wool in the end. And this is what a YouTube, all you do is you turn the YouTube so it's up a bit, and that way it flows nicely. And if you happen to be lazy and not clean your filter properly, what happens is if it gets a little plugged, it will come up and then it'll overflow through there. And there's a dirty glass lid going on top of that. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope this is all very helpful, but I wanted to show you one little other detail before I sign off, and that is, this is how plugged up they can get and still work. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you like, please subscribe, and let me know in the comments if there's any other videos you'd like to see. But that plant's been growing there for 8 years now, and no problems.